Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. Bel Garcia is back from her 1 week hiatus, and man, have things hit the fan since then. Why'd you go on vacation? It seems to have just coincidence that everything takes place. No, I'm kidding, obviously. Man, do we have a roller coaster of things to get through? Whether it's the obvious moves of Russell Wilson being traded and Bobby Wagner being cut to the MLB lockout finishing, as well as some new kits being released. The Kraken get an overtime win. Another extension gets signed. It's really an up and down. I mean, there's like, if you take away the major headlines from the first team that we go over, it's a pretty good week.
It was.
It's a pretty good week.
A lot going on.
And then you look at the monumental things that happened on March 8th, and you're like, okay. All right.
It was a crazy week. I know. I think we were messaging every day because there was things going on every day.
So I think with that being said, we should slide right head first into the Seahawks segment. So, Bel, we will head right into the thick of things.
Yeah. Of course, as many of you guys probably are aware by now, the Seahawks traded Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. The Broncos receive Wilson along with a 4th-round pick, and the Seahawks receive quarterback Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a 5th-round pick. And of course, there was some reaction from the trade. DK Metcalf said that it hurt. These 2 men have taught him so much, not only about football, but about life. And I can only imagine how they mentored him along the way in his early rookie year and, yeah, just his early years.
Yeah, I mean, DK's been a guy who, I know a lot of, well, not a lot necessarily, but there are Seahawks fans who are like, oh, he needs to grow up. Oh, I'm tired of his attitude. Yeah. He's a wide receiver. I mean, the whole wide receiver diva stereotype is existing, and I get that, right? I don't think it's that big of an issue. Granted, I think, I mean, if we're going to talk to Bel, there's the Green Bay game where DK got ejected and then tried to get back into the huddle. I don't think it's that big of a deal, especially with the type of playmaker that he is. But yeah, obviously, I mean, he said he got emotional. I mean, 2 guys that were really important to him are gone now. And those are 2 guys that coincidentally were the last pieces of the Super Bowl winning team in 2013. Came in the same day on that, I think, day 2 of the draft, and they're gone on the same day.
Yeah.
So just before we get to Bobby itself, and as well as the other news that comes with the Wilson trade, yeah, I mean, if I was in his shoes, I'd be like, hey, this is my quarterback, a guy I've built a really good rapport with. And, you know, working with Bobby Wagner, I mean, even there are photos, and if you watch the Seahawks games, you could see him, you know, interacting with Bobby. Those guys obviously meant a lot to him.
For sure.
So, yes, I mean, it's absolutely makes sense that would be a tough move. But also, if we're just going to look at the Wilson trade, I mean, I will be the first to admit I was wrong, right? I was wrong. I might have gotten bamboozled a little bit because on the 2nd of March, right? The 2nd of March, you know, at the Combine, John Schneider and Pete Carroll said the quarterback is not available. We have no intentions of trading Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson himself. Obviously, this is, you could take it as, oh, the players say anything they want, right? They could be doing things on the side, which it turns out they were. Right. But he's saying, I want to be in Seattle. I love Seattle. I don't plan on going anywhere else. I'm only focused on Seattle. And then we find out with some leaks, which I'll let you get to in a second. But apparently this had been in the works. The guts of this trade have been in the works since January. I don't think that helps a lot with trust in the fan base, right? To be told one thing and then, you know, you go whole 180 and then, you know, it's like, what leadership do I follow here?
Did you not see it happening at all, though? Because I think there were also rumors in previous off seasons that Russell was unhappy. And so,
well, and then the interesting thing, which we'll get to here, I guess his agent drove a lot of that. So much to the fact that general manager John Schneider said, I've had enough of this. Like, he didn't even want to deal with him.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're the general manager and you get so upset with a player's agent, it's a lot. And from what I understand from the people that I speak with is that a lot of this talk was driven by Mark Rodgers, his agent. It might have been Russell's not going to be the confrontational, hey, come up. Hey, can we talk? I'm not happy with this. I don't think John Schneider was going to pay him the $50 million that Denver will have to pay to extend him. I mean, especially, again, we don't know the details of Rodgers'
Yeah.
deal, but it's Russell Wilson. He's going to want that money. He signed, what, a 45 million, 35? You know,
I think it was
he's
45.
going to want more. He's going to want more. And say he does well in his first year in Denver. He's got some good weapons. And free agency still has yet to come, so he could get more. You don't think he's going to want top of the league money? He's going to want top of the league money, I'm sure. So it's just to address what you're saying about not seeing it. I mean, I think that's why what happened on the 8th, seeing Bobby get cut, hurt me more than Russell, because the seeds had been planted. The proverbial foundation had been laid that, hey, this is a possibility. You got to think about this happening. And so it was already in my head. But because I don't like to come on here like a Stephen A and ramp up some garbage, some rumor, I said, hey, we're going to go off the facts. Did I get comments about it from last week's episode? Because we released last week's episode on Monday, and then on Tuesday the trade happened. So I got the comments. This aged beautifully. I was wrong. You're going to be wrong in this industry. Yeah, it's amazing to see how this all happened. And ultimately, how I've looked at it in the blog that we posted on Converge's blog site, is that there's two roads you can go down. And these next few days are really going to tell me what I'd hope, unless I go radio silent, what road we're heading down. Rebuild, or are we in quick fix mode?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask. Is it very much feels like rebuild mode to me?
That's what you'd think, right? Yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing is Bobby said, through the losses, I want to be here. They said, we don't care.
Yeah, and back in December, I think he made comments about,
he said, I would like to be here, and maybe it was, hey, can you take a pay cut? I don't think he would have said no, but again, we'll probably hear about this in the years to come, because it's always how it happens, right? Like with the Rodgers stuff, I'm sure we'll hear about it in years to come. But at the moment, it's and knowing what we know about him not being alerted about the release, it's not good, because for years it's been people like Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, maybe even Michael Bennett, guys who are veterans. There's this trend of them not having the best exit with the franchise, and that's not good.
Not at all.
You talk about Pete Carroll's culture and wanting to come to Seattle because of that. People are going to see that, how they're treated on the way out. Do I want to go there?
Veer them away.
Yeah. So there's a lot. There's a ripple effect with this trade. So I'll let you get to what followed in that ripple.
Yeah. So just like you said, Pete Carroll's culture, I think this kind of ties in. The reason that Wilson was also unhappy was because of Pete Carroll's old school offensive philosophy. He felt like it was holding him back and damaging his legacy. Carroll wasn't going to abandon the formula Wilson and the Seahawks had used to claim the only Super Bowl title in franchise history. And it was only a matter of time before this marriage ended. So it sounded like Wilson wanted change, and there was no option of that. So,
and I think this is something that, if we talked about that, how Pete Carroll sticks to his guns.
Yes.
And he always, So, hey, if I'm, what did it say? Hurting his legacy?
Yeah.
I don't blame him, right? I mean, we've talked about wanting to, obviously there was a whole let Russ cook thing and all that, and people say, oh, well, this and that. Well, I mean, if you're going to want to throw the ball and you're relying on guys to jam the ball, okay, let me fix that word spaghetti I just dropped everywhere. The NFL changes year by year, and it's the good teams, the best teams adjust. Mm-hmm. Teams for the longest time, I don't want to inflate your ego, but Green Bay is good year in and year out, and they adjust on things.
Yeah.
In any sport, that's how things work. You adjust. Like Seahawks, that formula you talked about that was in that quote there, that bump and run defense does not work anymore, because the NFL caught on and they penalize that now. You got the 5 yards thing, and then you can't, like Richard Sherman and Brandon Brown are incarcerated, but Brandon Brown, you could mess with those guys.
Right.
And they were tough physical guys. They were imposing, a Legion of Boom. That's how that all started.
Yeah.
You can't do that now, because the league adjusted. And Pete Carroll isn't exactly a guy that necessarily adjusts. And he talked about that through several losses last season. That's on me. I got to be better about that. We got to adjust. Why am I hearing that more than 1 or 2 times?
Yeah.
I shouldn't. One game, hey, that's on me. We didn't adjust fast enough.
And that makes it concerning that there's no adjustment. And so
When I
players
hear
want
that
to leave.
in December, September, August, sure, go ahead, right? Beginning of the season, you got some new guys. Maybe you've got, like, what was it, Waldron's first year? Yeah, Waldron's first year, sure, go ahead, fine. Week 12, 13, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know, especially in December's where the league, like, it's kind of a trend. Oh, the Seahawks in December, they're winning again. So, yeah, I get it. I get it. And you look at the report that the Seattle was, just tired of all the drama. That goes back to what I said with Schneider. If you're the general manager and it's like you always have to be asked, hey, what do you think about your quarterback in this trade list? Russell seems unhappy. How do you feel about that? What are your comments? You saw on this show, I get sick of it. I got sick of it. And that one, I don't have to hear about it anymore.
Yeah.
And then the comment that he had checked out. I mean, if that's the guy that is wearing the Captain C, it's all golded out, and he's the face of the franchise, and I'm supposed to look up to him, and it seems like he's not even like really dedicated.
Yeah.
There's trouble.
Well, and that was kind of surprising to me as well, because of course he was out for several games with the finger injury. So the fact that players felt he was checked out and he didn't even play a full season, that's concerning. And we hope the best for Russell, but just like you said, the exit with players like Bobby Wagner and other veterans, not a good look. So Washington reportedly offered 3 first-round picks for Wilson in the package. Obviously, that didn't get taken up because he went to Denver. And QBs Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis considered top targets at number 9 overall pick. So do you think that we will move forward in the season with Drew Lock, or does this seem like a more viable option here, the number 9 pick?
So I would be that guy who defers and say, again, like what I just said with the week, right? Let's see how the week goes. I've kind of let myself fall into this idea of Malik Willis. I'm not the biggest on Kenny Pickett. I don't really.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, I know that I think last week or 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, we talked about how scouts saw this as one of the weakest quarterback drafts in years, right? Because normally, like through the years, like what? Oh, is it going to be Winston or who was it in that? Was it Winston or Mariota?
I think it was Winston. Yeah.
Yeah, Winston. Luck. All these other guys who you see as potential top guys. Mac Jones, Justin Fields, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Love. There's not that guy this year, but I've kind of fell into the thing of there are reports that have come out that Seattle had reportedly fell in love with one of the quarterbacks at the draft. Let it be Malik Willis.
I thought I saw something about Pete Carroll talking to one of the quarterbacks at the combine too. I can't remember who it was, but that definitely sparked some rumors that ended up being true.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Go back to that. I guess that John Schneider and I forgot his name, but the Denver GM had been talking at the Senior Bowl. So I guess they were fleshing out their deal there. But if we go into the season with Drew Lock, it signals rebuild to me, right? I don't think you look at this guy and you say, hey, we can contend with this guy. It reminds me of the days of Seneca Wallace. There's something just happened right now, so that's why.
I saw you a little distracted over there. Yeah.
So we'll get to that in a second. But I would be, if you get Malik Willis and you take him at number 9, I would be okay with it. I think I'd fall to that because obviously scouts, they do this for a living, but just like with the Russell Wilson trade, everybody in this industry is going to be wrong. You're going to be wrong throughout your time here. So maybe they're wrong about these guys, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of Kenny Pickett again, but at least for me, if I've got to pick somebody from that list, I'd take Malik Willis from Liberty. Let's run with it.
Okay.
That would be my thing.
And moving on here, like you said, we have released All-Pro linebacker Bobby Wagner. Many hearts broken because I think he was a favorite for a lot of people, and of course the defensive captain. So that's a leader gone for us, definitely. He will enter free agency, and more than likely due to his cap hit and Seattle wanting to go in a new direction. That's why he was let go. Wagner represented himself and was disappointed in the way that things went. He was not informed by the Seahawks that they were releasing him, so definitely took to social media to express his disappointment in that. And I don't think anyone was happy to hear that, the treatment of him.
No. I mean, it would have been one thing, because I know that it's been talked about, even through the year, right, that Wagner might be a cap casualty because of the contract that he holds and his age. You could ignore the age thing, considering that had he not gotten injured in that play one of that Detroit game, unless like Jordan Brooks got in the way of a bunch of it, probably would have ended the league leader in tackles.
Who did play fill in for Bobby?
It was
when
Brooks.
He was,
I think he stepped
okay.
right into that role, and I think Cody Barton shifted to the outside linebacker spot. But yeah, I mean, again, we talked about it. With the Wilson news, the seeds had been planted. There was that idea. I didn't think that Bobby would go, but that was the move that really said to me, "Hey, you're rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're quick fixing and you've got a quarterback you want to throw in there, why would you not keep a Bobby Wagner who would then take over the full face of the franchise role, right?" And it's gonna suck to see whatever franchise he goes to, whatever jersey he puts on.
Yeah,
and I really hope it's not one of the teams that we've got on there.
Because
go somewhere in the AFC. Just go. I'd get a Wagner jersey.
Division rivals here expected to have interest. So there are a few NFC West teams eyeing Wagner. The 49ers, the Rams, the Cardinals are all expected to have interest.
Vultures.
And the Cowboys are also eyeing Wagner. So Dallas has contacted him about reuniting with his old defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn. We're not happy seeing him on any team. So, but we wish him the best. On March 12th, Seattle tendered OG Phil Haynes. Haynes started 2 games last season, will receive an original round RFA tender that is worth $2.54 million. Gonna ask you to elaborate a little bit more here because I'm not exactly sure what that means for him.
It's like it's just like a type of contract, the tender, because he was already a restricted free agent.
Okay.
And so whatever, it says original round draft, right? So whatever round he was drafted in, like the earlier rounds, you're going to get more money, right? So in the later rounds, you're going to get less.
Right.
So it's going to be that. What was it? Was it $2.54 million?
Yes.
Wow, look at that. I remembered something. It's just equivalent to the round that he was drafted in, and it's basically like a baseline deal for what it's like a template for those rounds, and that's just like what he would have earned from that. And I doubt he declines it because Phil Haynes is a guy to me that I wanted to see. He got some play at center last offseason, and because of the fact that I'm not really on a lot of the centers that have been on this roster, I would have been happy with that move being made. Because I thought he should, like, the game that he really showed me something was that game against Green Bay where where Jimmy Graham got the first down and the Griffin twins sacked Rodgers. He had a really good game that game, and I thought, hey, maybe this is going to be a breakout guy. He just hasn't stayed healthy, which
is too bad.
So it's kind of like a, hey man, we're just going to give you this baseline contract, take it. If you can stay healthy, Seattle could hit a home run on this.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Cool.
But yeah, I think the most important thing is, I think we'll take a moment to look at Bobby's stats here. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
6-time first team All-Pro, 2-time second team All-Pro, 2-time NFL tackles leader. And I think one of the biggest things too, obviously we have to acknowledge that Russell spent a lot of time, with Seattle Children's, spent a lot. I mean, he's a co-owner, he's a part owner of the Sounders. But Bobby Wagner too is a guy that, from a lot of people that I know personally, spent time in the community and really invested his time and was just a really solid dude.
Yeah.
So you're not only losing the football aspect of it, but also guys that were involved in your communities and really like got their hands, and just kind of put themselves out there. So that's going to suck as well. Obviously there will be guys who I'm sure will pick up those mantles in ways. But obviously those two left marks that are, go stretch past the football field. So I guess we'll put that to rest. But yeah, that does, it's not fun.
Not at all. A lot of unhappy fans. Seattle has also now extended Quandre Diggs. He gets a 3-year extension worth $40 million, as well as giving a few other players extensions. Sidney Jones, Al Woods, and Disley all have received extensions or are going to receive extensions. How does that?
Well, it's funny with today because when we get to looking ahead, the NFL league year does not start till the 16th. So and you've already, if you follow the NFL, you know that guys like Christian Kirk have signed with the Jaguars. With Bell's Packers, Devonder Campbell has signed a deal to stay with the Packers. It's kind of like a formality. It's like, okay, I think this is team just getting ahead of it, right? We want to keep our guys. This is like preliminary, right? We're going to get this implant, talk to our guys. This is the period where you can talk to your guys. Say, hey, do you want to come back? And I think with all three of those, for Quandre Diggs was the biggest variable to me. Is like, hey, Russell's gone. Do you want to stay? Like, how do you feel about that? You didn't want it to be like an Earl Thomas situation where you're playing on a contract year, you break your leg, flip off Pete Carroll, and you're gone. So I think it's all just like these will all go into effect officially on the 16th. So like the tweets will come out, we'll read about it from the sources and their agents, but the Seahawks will not tweet about it and make it official until I think that's Wednesday, the 16th. Yeah. So that won't go into effect officially then, but these are, it's unless something bad happens, these won't like change.
So I wondered that. It's kind of like a commitment, it sounds like, that you're making to the team. But are you still able to hear what others have to offer in case they do reach out?
I think you technically can, but you've already signed it. So it's like commitments, and for college, like I think this is a written commitment.
Okay.
Right? So my name is in ink. It hasn't dried yet. And so I've seen it where actually, let me tear this up. We're going to change that. But I think it's really unlikely that happens.
Okay. And that's pretty much it for our team news before we move on to our free agency segment here. But I wanted to follow up with you because you got some busy fingers over there. So any updates that you need to give us?
We will hit on that in the Mariners section.
Oh, okay.
We actually have something there.
That's exciting.
Which I did not expect to happen, but it's
happening. In a good way.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and move on to our free agency segment here, where we have a list of players that we think the Seahawks either need to target or are free agents for the Hawks and we think should be released. So we're going to start here with players to retain. Charles had Quandre Diggs, DJ Reid, Rashad Penny, and Ryan Neal. You want to give us a little bit of background on the list?
So we look over here at the list. Diggs, obvious, that's already been signed. DJ Reid, I think, makes a lot of sense simply because since it's always funny with DJ Reid because he was a guy that was claimed off of waivers from the 49ers, a guy that's San Francisco's like, hey, we don't have a roster spot for you. We're going to let you go. And he's performed great. He's not a guy that's a typical Pete Carroll cornerback. He's a 5'9" guy, but he's really played a starting cornerback role, not a guy that you throw into the slot. He's performed well. I think he's earned, maybe similar to Diggs, a 3-year deal, right? Set him up because cornerback has been an issue for Seattle ever since Richard Sherman has left the team.
Yeah.
Quandre Diggs and DJ Reid, I think that makes sense. You want to keep the secondary intact. I think they've made some good plays. I would like to add another cornerback, but we'll look at that when we get to free agents to target.
Okay.
The last one, Rashad Penny, I think we both agreed on that.
We agreed on all three of those guys. Yeah. And I was actually kind of surprised to see Penny on your list because I know you had some reservations about how he might perform moving forward.
It just really depends on the deal that he's given. But I would like to see him back because with the uncertainty of a Chris Carson, because year in and year out, it's like my uncle jokes about it. And I used to get annoyed because I was like, oh, if he just stayed healthy. But they're like, hey, he does need to stay healthy. When will that happen? I can't, like, if I'm Pete Carroll, you know, if I had my hair back and I chewed the gum really loudly and I had the Air Monarchs, I'm looking at my roster and I'm looking at my running back depth chart and I'm like, can I count on Chris for 17 games this year? I don't know.
Yeah.
Rashad, well, and that's the danger of this. Like, if we're going to be completely honest about it, that's the danger of this backfield right now. Because even Penny, despite his late season resurgence, he's never played a full season.
Yeah.
So, but what he showed, you know, with a line that you'd like to improve this offseason is really good. And what you were hoping you would get when you drafted him as a first rounder out of San Diego State. So, again, I say give him a 2-year deal. I think 2 years is good. Maybe 2 years, like 10 to 12 million. I don't think that's bad, but I don't. Running back contracts are always kind of difficult because depending on if you're a pass catcher or you're valuable out. You know, I think 2 years. It's a tentative 2 years.
Yeah,
is how I would look at it.
And with us thinking that they're in rebuild mode, I think it would kind of make sense to try to fill a new face into that role. Hopefully, he's able to remain that consistency. Moving on, we did players to let walk. Chuck's list was Brandon Shell, Ethan
Postage.
Okay, I didn't want to butcher that. Kyle Fuller and Alex Collins. I had Gerald Everett, Alex Collins, and Al Woods, which actually he just committed to re-signing. So Al Woods was on my list only because he's an older guy, and I read that he might be a little bit more expensive than they thought.
We might get priced out of that.
Yeah. So I mean, it didn't sound like that happened though. 2 years for $9 million, you said?
Yep.
Yeah. So that was pretty good. So we were able to keep him at a good price. I don't think there's very much need for Gerald Everett anymore.
No, especially not with the Noah Fant acquisition, and that's Russell trade. And then especially now with Will Dissly being brought back, I'm intrigued that you. So why Everett over Dissly?
I think, again, I'm just thinking it's like rebuild mode, and we're looking for younger guys that eventually will have the talent that you see in them. So, again, with Noah Fant, Dissly being behind him, and they're different tight ends in their styles. So I just thought it would be a better fit.
Yeah, and it's not like you would sign him anyway on top of the Dissly deal, because if you're talking about getting younger, Seattle still has I'm gonna forget his name, the younger tight end out of Stanford. I'm forgetting his name, and it's terrible that I'm forgetting his name, but yeah, you want to stay younger and you probably want to keep that money off the books. It makes sense. But yeah, Postage and Kyle Fuller at center, neither of those guys have played to the level that you would have liked with Russell Wilson. And now, again, depending on how you approach this offseason, if you want to sit and rebuild, sure, sign Postage again. Let him be a placeholder. But if you're going to get a quick fix and you're going to want to protect that quarterback that you bring in to be a quick fix, I would want to upgrade at the center position. And there are some veteran spots that you could certainly do that at. But also, again, it depends on whatever plan you're going with. So, yeah, Brandon Shell actually has drawn interest from the Broncos with his former teammate Russell Wilson, so he might just leave on his own anyway. So yeah, those were guys that I thought, hey, you know, even before this trade happened, like a Brandon, those guys were already on my list. Alex Collins is a guy who's had, I think, 2 or 3 different stints with Seattle.
Yeah.
And he's getting up there in age. I would not mess with it. Your backfield's already going to be crowded anyway. Leave it alone. Best of luck to Alex Collins, but I think that the ship has sailed. So jump over to targets, and a position that I would not think that we would have had to target.
Yeah.
In quarterback. Bel, I want you to I think the elephant in the room in terms of this is Deshaun Watson. And I want to preface this by saying that having 24 people accuse you of something at all already does not stack any good odds against you. Having 24 different masseuses on its own is a little bit weird. So that's my stance on it. I would not like to see Deshaun Watson in a Seahawks uniform. But also, I have seen that Seattle is not in the top 3 teams that are pursuing him. So do I think it's likely? No, and I'll just leave it alone. But in this world where, you know, he gets cleared and somehow that's just all this incredibly wild thing where he was set up, sure, maybe, you know, because also I know that Houston wants a big package for him.
They do, yeah.
So it's like, are you just going to take
picks,
the load that you got from Denver and then move it over to Houston? You know, in an ideal world where all of that drama isn't happening, sure, let's go after Deshaun Watson if you're going to quick fix it, right? Let's do it. You're already not good with first-round picks anyway. Go ahead. But also I know that I can't just say, hey, we're going to ignore that stuff. So that's my personal stance on it.
Yeah. So based off of just him being young and then his talent and the talent that he's been able to show when he has played, that's why I thought that a Deshaun Watson trade would kind of make sense. Again, I'm not ignoring all of the personal stuff that's going on with him either, and we'll get into that again because that was league news that he avoided the criminal charges. But I just thought that, again, rebuilding, he's 26 years old. He has shown promise, and I thought maybe it would be a good fit. Not saying, again, just kind of letting go of all of the personal stuff that he's going through right now. I also had Teddy Bridgewater and Marcus Mariota on my list. Mariota, again, because he's a young quarterback with good mobility that didn't see much time on the field behind Derek Carr. And Teddy Bridgewater for me because he played 14 games with the Broncos and still ranks among the most accurate QBs in the league with a 66.9 completion percentage, and still also kind of on the younger side at 29, if you could say that's young.
And not to rain on the Bridgewater parade, but he does intend to sign a 1-year deal with Miami.
Oh, wow.
So there takes Bridgewater away. But looking at your list here, I mean, all of these guys, I think the key thing is that they're dual threat guys. And because if you're looking at what was said about Russell and wanting to keep that formula in place, that does include a little bit of mobility, right? You're not looking at like a Peyton Manning set in the quarter stand. That's why when the news in that offseason, when we signed Matt Flynn, when the news about Peyton Manning potentially being linked to Seattle was a thing, I didn't believe it for 1 second. Because the offensive line is the first thing. Like Brady, people are like, oh, when Russell got traded, bring Brady to Seattle. Tom Brady would never come here. You need a great offensive line for Tom Brady. Tom Brady would die in Seattle.
Tom Brady also doesn't want to join a team that's rebuilding. No. In what season is he coming into now?
21st, 22nd. It's older than me. So, but yeah, at least with my list, it was Cam Newton. I would buy a Cam Newton Seahawks jersey. I'd say that right now. Marcus Mariota, I agree with you on that. Tyrod Taylor is a guy who's, been a consistent veteran. He's seen some really unlucky breaks, like with the Chargers to give Justin Herbert his start. There was that news about the team trainer puncturing his lung.
Yeah.
That's some bad luck, man. So I give Tyrod Taylor a shot, and then just to feed into Cougars fans' hopes a little bit, and I'll do this one favor. Go ahead. Get Gardner Minshew. Screw it. Go and get him. Come on. He hasn't, in all of the seasons he's played in the NFL, he's had a good touchdown to interception ratio. With that's how I feel with this Russell Wilson trade. Screw it. Go ahead. Go and get him.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at a quarterback, but we're moving a little bit. We got a lot of Seahawks stuff to get through here. So we'll go over to offensive line. Tackle and center are positions that I've looked at throughout the season, right? So I would look at, in the center, we both looked at Ryan Jensen, and this was before Brady decided he was going to come back. So it's more than likely that Jensen will be heading back to the Buccaneers. So I guess we can ignore that. Matt Paradis is a guy who is a he might go back to Denver. He was a Bronco at first. He played time with the Panthers, but he's a veteran. I haven't seen anything about him. There's been a flurry of news about signings while we've been doing this. I have not seen Jensen's name, so
I thought I saw an article last night that said that Jensen
Paradis.
Okay,
sorry,
because Jensen definitely is probably going to resign with the Bucks.
I haven't seen Paradis, but that's what I'm talking about. If you're quick fixing it and you bring one of those guys in, I would want a veteran center who is going to be good. And that's the thing. We go over to offensive tackle now. Dwayne Brown, is he going to want to be here in a rebuild? Probably not. He's getting up there in age, and his main guy, Russell Wilson, is gone. That was a big thing when we traded for him from Houston. Yeah. I'm here to protect Russell Wilson because since Russell Okung, and I didn't even like Russell Okung. He got a lot of false start penalties and holding penalties, and he had his penalty issues. Since Russell Okung, we hadn't had a consistent left tackle. George Fant had been thrown in there, into the fire, a guy who played basketball, and they were making him an offensive lineman. You had just been looking at a bunch of revolving door guys. You bring in Dwayne Brown to be the guy to protect the quarterback's blind side, and now the guy he was protecting is gone. Mm-hmm. Does he want to be back here? I'm going to say no if you're going to be rebuilding. But if you bring someone in that is a starter, he might come back. But also with the reports that Brendan Shell is going to may go to the Broncos, you're looking at right tackles maybe. I think the biggest piece is the one that we agreed on in Teron Armstead. He's a 30-year-old from the Saints. The Saints are effectively in cap hell where they need to rework a bunch of deals. He might be a cap casualty. And again, I like the quick fix idea, so I'm going to run with that. Teron Armstead, bolster that offensive line. Say you've got Teron Armstead, Gabe Jackson, who you acquired last offseason. In an ideal world, get Matt Paradis. You've got Damian Lewis, who's a good young guard, and then you got to sign a right tackle. That's 4 out of 5 starters that are good.
Yeah.
And that's better than 3 of 5, So tackle I think tackle and center are 2 positions I'd look at. But then also I had heard that Seattle was looking to add another receiver. Now, you and I have a little bit of a different acquired taste here. I was looking at guys who would be maybe complementary to a DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I know that there were rumors about Tyler Lockett being traded, but that would mean a big cap hit for Seattle, so that's why I don't think that's realistic. And DK Metcalf, we're going to hope that he's going to be under contract, right? Keelan Cole, Dante Pettis is a local product who's played well with the Giants last season. Deshaun Hamilton is a Bronco who is still relatively young, but has not been able to stay in the field due to injury. I think that's like Pete Carroll guy. They're like, give him a chance, right? Mike Thomas is also a Bronco who has played well in his time. Not Michael Thomas from the Saints, but Mike Thomas from the Broncos, but has been productive. Bell went for some guys who I think might fetch some cash this offseason, but Seattle has that cash. So do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I thought the same thing, but I figured that, why not add someone of kind of a star caliber to the Metcalf and Lockett duo? So I did Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who produced for the Packers, and he always got those long balls from Aaron Rodgers and was effective in getting those long balls from Aaron Rodgers. So second on my list was Allen Robinson. I'm kind of surprised that no one has snagged him up yet, and he's still, to my knowledge, a free agent, but he was able to produce with the lack of a QB talent, I would say, in Chicago. So
even back when he was a Jaguar, he had played Bortles, which isn't doing him. He's never really played with a marquee guy. And if we were doing this and Russell Wilson had not been traded, I say yes.
Yeah.
Go and get Allen Robinson. Bolster that wide receiver core. Again, it all depends. I think it's like I need a domino to fall to really say what plan we're going into. But also Schneider or Carroll have not said, we're looking to compete next year, right?
Yeah.
They haven't said that. So I don't know. But I think
which all reads rebuild.
in an ideal world, I like the Robinson idea.
Yeah.
I love it. Even Scantling and
I had Juju as my last one on the list. Only because I think that Juju really came out hot in the first 2 seasons that he had in the league, and I feel like it's still in him. I think it can come back. And
He's got talent.
yeah.
And he's only like 25. But I saw a stat last night, actually. It was kind of funny since I saw that you put that in there. In 30 games with Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster had 11 100-yard games. Through 33 without him, he has 1.
That's weird.
That could also be a byproduct, though, of playing with a Ben Roethlisberger that's at the end of his career.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
That makes sense. We get to edge/pass rush over here. This is an interesting situation because there's a lot of marquee guys, a couple that we have to take off of the list here.
Yeah.
As we look at our little graphic here, Devonder Campbell has signed with the Packers. He's re-upped his deal. Hassan Reddick, who I had on my list, has signed with the Eagles. But there's some interesting names. I think the most important one is Chandler Jones. Now, Jones said that free agency is not about the money to him. He's looking for a team that maximizes his talents. Jones has typically played in the 3-4 defense. Now, with Clint Hurt coming in, I know he's talked about that a little bit. Playing with fire. I was always a 4-3 guy.
Yeah.
Like even in Madden, I like my cover linebackers. But again, with this, you're kind of looking at a new slate here without Russell Wilson. But go ahead. Sure, go ahead. I was looking at Jadeveon Clowney, maybe a Solomon Thomas. Solomon Thomas is a guy that got drafted high by the 49ers. Didn't necessarily work out there. Had a decent year with the Raiders last year. Standard Pete Carroll reclamation project. Sure, go ahead, throw him in there. Bell, again, looking at the maybe more expensive side of things. But also, again, you've got that money. So I'd like you to explore that a little bit.
Yeah. So, of course, Von Miller, who we don't know if he's committing to the Rams. And he actually, funny enough, teased a return to Denver, I think 2 days before the Russell trade was announced. So who knows? We might see him in a Denver Broncos uniform again. But clearly he's a scary guy. And I think he would just maximize on any team. So Von Miller, definitely. Chandler Jones, because like you said, Chandler Jones wants to be on a team where he can be Chandler Jones and he wants to just maximize his talent. And if his interest is not the money, then we could possibly add a guy that's pretty good for a pretty affordable price. So definitely on my list. And then, like you said, Devonder Campbell was on my list, but he has committed to the Packers, which the Packer fan in me is very excited about. He quickly became one of my favorite players. So unfortunately, he can't be on the list anymore, but I added this morning Zadarius Smith.
Yes. Okay. I was going to say, I don't know if you saw that he was likely to be released.
He
I think give him he's another linebacker / edge guy that if you're going to run 3-4, hey, why not? Right? Go ahead. Put him in there.
Yeah.
You're going to need, pressure. Quarterback pressure has been a big talk on the defensive side of the ball with the Seahawks for the past few years now, with being near the bottom of the league in sacks and not having a guy that is the sack leader, right? And also to go back to it, Chandler Jones is a guy that in several, where do key free agents max up articles, I've seen Jones linked to Seattle.
Really?
That would be a cool splash.
Yeah.
But that if you sign Chandler Jones, what does that signal to me? Quick fix. I need to figure this out. It's going to eat me up because then I can go forward with my offseason and figure these things out. So we look at the pass rush side of things, and now switch over to cornerback, which we kind of talked about with the DJ Reid thing. Some similar things here, but also some different. Both Bell and I agreed on a Kevin King, a guy who was a Husky product. Rasul Douglas, not a bad idea. Dante Jackson, was he spending time? I know he played with the Panthers for a bit. Isaiah Oliver, I think he had a really good season with the Falcons. I think he went to school in Colorado. This is where I looked on the more expensive side of things with Stephon Gilmore, a guy who's won a Defensive Player of the Year, and one that Seattle was potentially linked to trading for last season. Kyle Fuller was a guy that also was linked to. He was involved in some of those mock trades for Russell Wilson with the Bears. I think he actually signed with the Broncos last season.
No,
the Broncos keep showing up. This is terrible. J.C. Jackson actually just signed with the Chargers, so I can take him off of my list. And Justin Coleman was a guy who Seattle signed as a reclamation project from the Patriots a few years ago and had a great year, and then went and signed a big deal with Detroit. He's a free agent again. He's had some good years. Bring in a slot guy. I don't see why not. Do you want to look at any of those cornerbacks in particular and expand on any of that?
I mean, I don't see Douglas going anywhere, if I'm being honest. He had a really good season. He had, I believe, a career high 5 interceptions this season. He did really well with the lack of Jair Alexander there. So Kevin King was even hurt for part of the season. And like I said, he filled in greatly. So while he does not have a deal yet, I don't see him leaving the Packers. But Kevin King, I feel like, is a young guy that still has a lot to grow. He's talented, but he can still grow and would fit perfectly with that rebuild, just like Dante Jackson and Isaiah Oliver. So that's the reason those guys were on my list.
Yeah, and you look at King, he's a guy that fits right into the Pete Carroll cornerback mold. I mean, tall, lanky. Pete Carroll. Pick up the phone, Pete.
Get Kevin King back to Seattle.
I just want to talk, Pete. I just need to talk. But yes, I just wanted to scoot that forward because we had a pretty hefty Seahawks section. So we'll jump into league news. The Packers reportedly finalized a deal with Aaron Rodgers. The initial announcement was a deal of 4 years, $200 million. Rodgers later tweeted, "Hey, I'm coming back, but that deal isn't real.
Yeah.
That's not true." And we still don't know what that deal would be. So
No.
Bel is a little bit concerned about that because we have no idea what that deal is.
Yes, but also it gives me hope for the guys that they might re-sign, because I was getting so many text messages over the week saying that Aaron had taken all of the Packers money. So now what were they going to do with the free agents? So it just kind of gives me hope that they're working out a deal to keep Rod for those 4 years, but still keep some of the main pieces that they need. So looking forward to seeing what that looks like.
So the list of players who received a franchise tag, which was the deadline on the 8th, include left tackle Orlando Brown with KC, tight end David Njoku with the Browns, Jesse Bates Jr., free safety with the Bengals, tight end Mike Gesicki with the Dolphins, tight end Dalton Schultz with the Cowboys, left tackle Cam Robinson with the Jaguars, wide receiver Devontae Adams with the Packers, and wide receiver Chris Godwin with the Buccaneers. Both of those last two guys reportedly do not want to play on that tag. On the 11th, famous broadcaster Joe Buck announced that he will join the Monday Night Football crew with longtime partner Troy Aikman. Both of those two will join the ESPN broadcast after spending a long time with Fox. It was also reported that Aikman never got a counteroffer from Fox after it was announced that ESPN was going to make him the Monday Night Football guy. Also, as Bell mentioned, Deshaun Watson was cleared of criminal charges. Watson will not face charges from the sexual assault and misconduct cases, but will still face civil lawsuits. So he's not out of the woods. And then on the 13th of March, Tom Brady unretired, as I had thought he would when we had to break that news. The legendary quarterback announced on Twitter that he will return to the Buccaneers, which I think is interesting, simply because there were reports that came out that he was unhappy with the way Buccaneers did things, and Bruce Arians had some vulgar words about it. So I don't know how that whole situation works. It's kind of like you're people watching and you're like, hey, what are they doing over there? I don't know. But he's back, so that's just kind of like we got to deal with that now.
I feel like he just got nostalgic and was like, I need to come back.
It's always funny on Twitter because people are like, I guess he met with Ronaldo over the weekend, and there were things that, LeBron dropped 52 games in 2 games this past week, and Brady said, I'm going to come back. And then there was also things that Tom Brady had enough of his kids over 2 months and decided that he was going to come back. I don't know. All I know is I've got to deal with him again. So with that being said, we've got a lot going on here still. We're pushing it. We're going to head over to the Mariners and the lockout tracker. So on the 9th, another week of regular season games were reportedly canceled. 2 series were removed from the schedule. Opening day would have been postponed to April 14th at the time. On the 10th, the lockout ended. The lockout finally came to an end. Both sides had been long debating the deals of the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement. They finally got it. The MLB and the MLBPA had reached a tentative agreement on the CBA, and they just had to work out some formalities. So we'll look at the deals of that CBA or some key notes. Opening day was moved to April 7th, and a full 162-game schedule will be played. It will obviously include some doubleheaders because of those games being pushed back. Spring training opens with a voluntary March 11th date and a mandatory date of March 13th, so that has already happened. Spring training games begin on March 17th. Our Mariners will kick off their spring training dates on the 18th. I don't know how many of those games will be televised. I know Root will have some of them on, but the radio will have them all, and I'll be listening to those because I need baseball. Free agency began immediately once the CBA was ratified. So around 3 o'clock on the 10th, that free agency started. And the playoffs were expanded from 10 teams to 12 teams. So now our Mariners have even more of a chance to make it. And I don't care if it's because the teams were expanded. I will still cry when we make the playoffs. So we'll get right into free agency. On the 10th, the MLBPA talks were extremely busy, reportedly. A flurry of activity behind the scenes. MLB free agency began post-lockout. We really didn't get anything until the 12th and the 13th, and today. We'll get to that, though. On the 11th, we had a flurry of reports about the Mariners having interest in several players. The Mariners had competition for Chris Bryant. Bryce Harper was reportedly petitioning for the Philadelphia Phillies to sign Chris Bryant, who is a good friend of Harper. The Mariners reportedly had interest in Albert Pujols. Mariners were among the teams that have shown interest in signing the aging veteran due to the universal DH being put in place with the new CBA. A few other things that were involved in the CBA were the universal DH. There will be a pitch clock installed. There will be no robot umpires, and the bases will get bigger. So apparently the Rockies and Cardinals also had interest in bringing in Pujols. The Mariners were reportedly in a heated market for Japanese outfielder Seiya Suzuki. Seattle was one of many teams linked to the slugging outfielder, including the San Francisco Giants, Los Angeles Dodgers, Chicago Cubs, San Diego Padres, and Boston Red Sox. On the 12th,
still on the 11th here.
12th, oopsie. On the 14th, I forgot what today was. The Mariners traded for Reds outfielder Jesse Winker and third baseman Eugenio Suarez. That is the deal that was taking place as we were going through our Seahawks. The all-star outfielder in Jesse Winker and the third baseman Eugenio Suarez were acquired from the Cincinnati Reds. Seattle is sending over starting pitcher Justin Dunn, prospect pitcher Brandon Williamson, and outfielder Jake Fraley. Now, considering those three pieces that were traded, I am happy with this trade. You get an outside outfielder that the team had been looking for. You get a third baseman, a slot that you had been looking for. So it just talked about the players that Seattle had been interested in Bryant and Suzuki. That kind of takes you out of the running. If you acquire an outside outfielder and a third baseman, you don't need Chris Bryant, who plays third base and outfield, and you probably don't need another outfielder in Suzuki. So I'm okay with that. I didn't think you'd look to trade for Winker. But it brings up an interesting situation because now you've got four starting caliber outfielders in Kyle Lewis, my favorite, Mitch Haniger, Jared Kelenic, who was one of your prime jewels in the prime. And now Winker, and that's not including prize prospect Julio Rodriguez, who may bust into the major leagues this season. So I've been asked a couple times now since that trade just happened a few minutes ago, what do you do with four outfielders? My thoughts are that you designated hit one of those guys to keep them fresh, whether it's Lewis or Haniger, who both have somewhat of a history with being injured. Rotate them into the DH spot. Just keep them healthy. Just say, hey, all you got to do is hit today. I don't see why not, And all good teams are going to have depth, guys that need to step up. I mean, we saw it with the Mariners with injuries last season. Guys like Jacob Nottingham, who bounced between the Mariners and the Brewers over the course of a week 4 different times, had to start in the catcher role. If we looked at the opening day lineup last year, it's not good. Justin Dunn, he's still got good upside. We acquired him, I think, in the Kelenic deal. I like Dunn, but it makes sense. He kind of fell out of the rotation. He had to deal with injury last season, and you're going to get an all-star outfielder. Fine. Brandon Williamson is the one prospect out of all of the Mariners prospect, the rich farm system that you've got, that I'm the most okay with trading. Fraley is a guy that a lot of people had been fans of. He had a really cool beard. He just was really inconsistent, and I wasn't a fan of it. And so I'm okay with that package. You get a all-star outfielder, and you fill that third base spot. And you do it for guys that, you lose a prospect, sure, but two other guys that really, you're going to get more contributions out of Winker and Suarez. So I'm okay with that trade, but that is what happened. We finally have a deal for you. I had been antsy. I'm like, hey, when are the Mariners going to do something? What's going on? When are we going to sign Chris Bryant? So that probably closes the door, but also you get a guy that I'd say was probably ranked pretty high in the left field rank in MLB. So I'm okay with that. We've got a deal.
Any moves that you feel are left to be made?
Another starting pitcher. The Twins did a trade with the Reds for starting pitcher Sonny Gray, and he was a guy that had been linked to Seattle. The A's traded Chris Bassett, who was a guy who was a good pitcher. You get him out of the division, sure. But there's not many guys in free. Oh, Carlos Rodon was a pitcher that I was hoping that Seattle would look at, left-handed pitcher from the White Sox, but he signed with the Giants. Okay. There's not too many guys on the free agency market that I see you signing. Chris Archer, I think, is from around here, and he's 33. Maybe give him a shot. But Jerry Dipoto, general manager Jerry Dipoto, might be banking on one of your prospects making up this year. George Kirby, cool last name, has been topping 100 with his fastball. Has been consistently hitting 96, 97. We might see a bunch of those guys rocket up the minor league ranks. And even Jerry Dipoto at the end of the year was saying that call to AA can be made. So he's not saying you have to be in AAA. You can jump ranks. Starting pitcher is what I'd look at. Yeah. I think that's good to address. And I think next week we'll have to look at they announced the list of spring training invitees. I think we'll have to look at that next week. Right. But because of how much time the Seahawks segment took up, I'm going to try to push us through this. So, yes, that was the deal that was just made. League notes, on March 11th, it was announced that a home run derby will take place. If the All-Star game goes into extra innings, there will be a second home run derby. So that's kind of cool. But I don't know how often the All-Star game goes into extra innings. And also on the 11th, it was announced that Canada will not allow unvaccinated players to play. MLB players who choose to remain unvaccinated will be placed on the restricted list when their team travels to Toronto to play the Blue Jays. I know that the Mariners last season had trouble getting guys vaccinated, so that might be difficult when it comes time to play the Blue Jays. I think we have a road trip to Toronto, but I don't remember for sure. Speaking of Toronto, on the 12th, the Blue Jays signed former Mariner Yusei Kikuchi to a 3-year deal. Mm-hmm. So Kikuchi did not take the player option that Seattle had given him this offseason and decided to bet on himself, and he signs with a contender for a long-term deal. Good for Yusei. So looking ahead, not free agency, spring training. Yay. I'm excited.
Glad to have it back. Sure.
It's like the Thanos meme. You got Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner leaving, but baseball's coming back, and the Mariners with one of the most exciting seasons in years. It's like perfectly balanced.
Silver linings.
Okay. So we move over to the Storm here. The only real news that we've got from the Storm is that on the 10th, the league announced that the WNBA will hold their in-person draft. After 2 years of virtual drafts, the top prospects will once again gather in New York for the April 11th event. Woo. That's all we've got for the WNBA. We switch over here to the Sounders. The Sounders continue their regular season march as well as their CONCACAF Champions League pursuit with 2 games here. The first one being March 8th versus Club Leon in the first leg of the Champions League quarterfinal. Seattle would win that game 3-0. Player of the game number 1 would be forward Freddie Montero with 2 goals, 3 shots, 2 shots on target in 82 minutes. The second player of the game would be midfielder Christian Roldan with 2 assists, 1 shot on goal, a 69.7 pass percentage in 90 minutes. For their performance, both Roldan and Montero were named to the CONCACAF Champions League quarterfinals leg 1 best 11. And then on the 12th, the Sounders welcomed the LA Galaxy to town, the undefeated LA Galaxy to town for a tilt. Looking the Sounders for their first win in MLS play, gaining it with a 3-2 win. Player of the game would be defender Javier Arriaga with 1 goal, 2 shots, 1 on target, and a 90.3 pass percentage. Arriaga scoring the winning goal on a header in the 71st minute. Seattle really kind of gritted out a win. They give up the first goal, get one back shortly after. You played deadlocked for a while, but I think it might have been one of those things where you need to get the first one out of the way, and then things might open up.
Yeah,
right?
Not a bad first one either.
Seattle, 2 losses to go into this game in MLS play. Galaxy with 2 wins. And it was kind of a lot of the previews that I read in the betting had the Galaxy winning. And it's kind of funny. The Galaxy had tweeted Galaxy Revenge Tour the day before the game. And so after the game, the Sounders posted tour postponed. I thought that was kind of petty. So there was that. So pushing through, the Sounders now with a 1 win, no draw, 2 loss record in MLS play. They're now 11th in the Western Conference as opposed to 14th. Looking ahead, on March 17th, the team will travel to Club Leon for the second leg of the CCL quarterfinals with a 5:30 p.m. Pacific time start. That should be on Fox. It's not been announced if it'll be on FS1 or Fox Sports 2. Seattle leads on 0-3, a 3-goal aggregate. So what that means is, really quickly, Club Leon would need to score 3 goals to just tie it. If they scored 4 goals and Seattle scored none, then they would outright. So Seattle's had a good advantage. That's why in these games where you've got 2 legs, you want to score as many as you can. Just keep putting them in there. So Leon would need to score 4 and keep Seattle a shutout to win that game outright. So that's how that would have to happen. Going back, on the 20th, the Sounders will travel to Austin to play Austin FC with a 1:30 p.m. Pacific time start. So now we head over to our Seattle Kraken here, who they had their ups and downs. Bel, do you want to sort of look at the Kraken past week here?
Let's do it. So March 8th, they faced the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that was a loss, unfortunately, 4-6. The player of the game was Colin Blackwell with 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. 4 shots on goal, 2 hits, 15:08 time on ice. On March 10th, they faced the Ottawa Senators, loss of 3-4 in overtime.
Yes.
Player of the game was Ryan Donato, 1 goal, 1 point, 3 shots on goal, 1 giveaway. And March 12th, they faced the Montreal Canadiens. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay. With a win, 4-3. And that was an OT shootout with player of the game being Ryan Donato. 1 goal, 1 point, 3 shots on goal, and 1 takeaway. So
kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
But I mean, if those 2 games at the end going to overtime and Toronto with being one of the best teams in the league, I don't think that's horrible, right? That's kind of how we have to look at the rest of this season. It's like, hey, pick up things when you can, but overall, I don't expect you to do too much. In that Ottawa game, they were down 0-3 going into the final period, and you score 3 goals, you send it to overtime. You get the 1 point. That's the thing with hockey. Like, if you go to overtime in the NFL, you don't get anything. There's no bonus out of that. You just lose and you play the longer game, right? In hockey, you get at least 1 point for the standings. And then the Montreal game really, frustrating to go to overtime against a team that's arguably the worst in the league, but also to go an overtime shootout, maybe get the guys pumped a little bit,
get the win,
some adrenaline, but, can't complain. So we look at injury news. The team placed forward Jonas Donskoy on injured reserve. Team news, though, we have some good things. What are those good things, Bel?
We have extended Jared McCann. So he got a 5-year deal worth $25 million total, $5 million per year. And we have a couple quotes from him here. He said, "To see our fans every single night, no matter how we're doing, they are supporting us. As a player, it makes you want to win for them. I believe in the city and I believe in this organization." So that's kind of nice to see that the inaugural season has not
been too lost.
Yeah.
And McCann's arguably been your best player. Eberle gets the all-star nod, but McCann leads in goals and points in 52 games. He scored on the power play 7 times with 12 total power play points. And it's just kind of been your best forward. He's a young guy. It's a good piece going forward, especially as we look over on the 9th with the prospect check-in. Second overall pick, Matty Beniers, named a finalist for the Big Ten Player of the Year, a guy that's already going to be good, getting more accolades there. So you've got the number 2 overall pick coming, maybe at the end of the year, but more than likely just next year in general. You lock up your best player, and well, on top of that, you should have another high pick this year with how you're playing. And then you've got cap space in this offseason. So, I mean, if we're looking at it, those are good signs, right? And especially it's not like the Seahawks where, we might be going into we don't know. This is the first year. The book's kind of still to be written. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. As long as the moves are made correctly and it's not like we're wasting money on people. On the 11th, as a corresponding move to Jonas Donskoy being placed on IR, the team recalled forward Cole Lind from the Charlotte Checkers just to take that roster spot over. So the Kraken now sit at an 18-win, 37-loss, 6 overtime loss record with a resulting 42 points. 8th in the Pacific Division, of course, playing 2 games this upcoming week, March 16th versus the defending champion Tampa Bay Lightning at 7 o'clock, and then March 19th versus the Detroit Red Wings at 7 o'clock. So only 2 games over the next week. Not the worst, but you're also playing one of the best teams in the league in Tampa Bay. So
bit of a down week, but who knows? Maybe those 2 games will.
You never know with these guys. You never know. So we throw it over here to the Reign. The Reign continued their Thorns preseason tournament on March 8th versus the Chicago Red Stars, winning that game 2-1. Player of the game would be forward Ziara King with a goal and an assist. And then March 11th versus the U.S. women's national team under 23 players, under 23 years old team, would be a draw. Player of the game would be midfielder Jess Fishlock with the 1 goal. So what I had heard in the press conference before this had taken place was that head coach Laura Harvey really wanted to see where the roster was, see what you've got, right? And from what I read about her, what she said after the press conference, after the tournament, was that she got that. She said we learned a lot about ourselves, and that's good. I mean, you set out with a goal to learn about the team, and you learned about it. So that's good, and it should be hopefully a good stepping stone as we get into Challenge Cup. But before we do that, something was unveiled. Belle, do you want to tell me what was unveiled for the Reign here?
Sorry. NWSL names new league commissioner. I don't see anything else.
Oh, well, I guess I'll take the reins here. On the 14th, which is today, the team unveiled the Honor Kit. It is the secondary kit for the Reign. They had teased it earlier, but this is we have a few promo pics for it. Can't really see it too good there, but we'll get a closer look. It features the names of Reign players who have represented the team since its inaugural season in 2013. The crest respects our past while looking to the future. Here we get a couple more. There's forward Ali Watt. You see that red and blue stripe down the middle includes all of the names of about, I think, former CEO Bill Predmore said that there's about 200 players that have played for the club since its inaugural season. Includes all of their names in that stripe. So it's kind of a cool nod to I've never really seen anything like that.
Yeah.
A cool nod to those who have helped build the club and have been part of the club. So I think that's kind of cool. If you're looking to get one, the tentative shipping date is May. But
do you have yours ordered already?
I have to make that decision. I have to go and look and see what I want. But a new kit, I know that a bunch of clubs have shown their new ones around the league, and the Reign finally have theirs, and we have the photos to show it. So, but yes, you were talking about something in league-related news?
Yeah, so we'll get back to that. They have named a new league commissioner. Former NHL executive Jessica Berman replaces Lisa Baird, who resigned last year amid scandal involving multiple league coaches. Formerly the National Lacrosse League's deputy commissioner and executive vice president of business affairs for the preceding 2.5 years. She worked in the NHL for 13 years, firstly as a vice president and deputy general counsel, then as a vice president of community development, culture and growth, and executive director of the NHL Foundation. So sounds like she has some experience there.
Yeah, that was the big thing, I think, in the NWSL. There's a lot of moves that frustrate the fan base. It's like, hey, this person doesn't have the experience. Why are you hiring them? And it's
Yeah.
a lot of the times because it's a man, and it's like, hey, this guy doesn't have the experience when there are plenty of women who are qualified for these roles. I think this was a solid pick.
Yeah.
You need a commissioner for the league, which is obviously important. And like you said, with the experience, I think it's a solid pick. So looking ahead for the Reign, we actually have something that's not preseason. Challenge Cup begins on the 18th versus the Portland Thorns at 7 o'clock. This is a Lumen Field home opener and the Challenge Cup 2022 home opener. So if you've got time on the 18th, Lumen Field, you don't have to worry about going down to Tacoma anymore. Head down to Lumen Field. The Reign will take on Portland and Seattle, Portland. The rivalry is already set in itself. Both teams that should contend for the playoffs this year. The Thorns are actually the betting favorites to win the title this year.
Wow.
Last I saw. So, and this is Challenge Cup. There's a trophy that you're playing towards. It's not like preseason where, we're just getting it out of the way. There's a trophy on the line here. So,
you going to be out there?
I'll be in the press box.
No.
Unless something happens. I break my leg. I cried too much from Bobby Wagner leaving.
No.
So we head over to our Seattle Seawolves to wrap up the day. On March 12th, the Seawolves travel to Houston to play. This is one of the cooler names I've seen for a team ever.
SaberCat.
The SaberCats. Yes. Don't know what a SaberCat is. It sounds like something that would be in like an
cool.
80s video game.
Yeah.
Seattle would lose that game 19-21, making it close late, but Houston effectively had control of the game throughout. A late try would not be enough to defeat Houston, who was fourth in the Western Conference. But because Seattle lost by 7 or less, they get a point in the standings. So they hold on to their third place in the Western Conference. You sit at 3-3, though. You start out 3-0. You defeat Toronto and Utah in tough games, and you defeat your rivals in San Diego in a close game, and you think, hey, Seattle's got some turnover issues to fix. There's some offensive inconsistency. You've got some pretty solid players on the roster. They just need to adjust some things. You're looking at now a 3-game skid against Austin, who has been at the top of the Western Conference. Houston, it's, am I concerned about this? Kind of, but knowing that they're still in the third place in the West,
it's not terrible. Yeah,
it could be worse. But also, I really think they need to adjust things, especially considering who they're playing next week. Looking ahead, March 19th at the Dallas Jackals. Dallas, it's their first year in Major League Rugby. They're 0-6. This is a 5 o'clock start down in Dallas. If you lose this game, if we had a red panic button right here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be panicking.
I think we need to look at it in a positive way and see that this is where they get back on course.
Yeah, I think this should be a game you look at. This is tune-up, right? You go down to Dallas, manhandle them, take care of business, fix your issues, and it should lead you some positive momentum heading into the next round 8.
Mm-hmm.
But 3-game skid is a little bit concerning to me, but also the games that you've lost have all been really close. So it tells me you're there. You just need to fix it.
Yeah.
But that's where I think good teams, resilient teams, and bad teams are made. Do you fix those adjustments? Are you able to fix those adjustments? So we'll see. But yes, Dallas, 0-6. Like you said, this should be a perfect opportunity for the Seawolves to right the ship. So, man, this might be one of the longer episodes.
This was a crazy week. Happy Pie Day, by the way.
Yes, happy Pie Day. If you like pie, go ahead. Thank your directors. Salman.
Thank you, Salman.
Sitting back here, doing the work here at Converge. Man, all this stuff from the Seahawks and the Seahawks' moves and the Mariners, the lockout inning, and then something happening while we're recording. Mm-hmm. The Sounders in the thick of it. The Seawolves in the thick of it. The Reign announcing a new kit and getting into Challenge Cup. The Kraken in the thick of their season and extending people. I'm not going, and we wouldn't have anything storm related. Imagine if we had something storm related in there.
Yeah, so, that'll be exciting.
With that being said, we'll get out of here. Take care of yourself. It is rainy out there, so this is par for the course in Seattle. So yeah, just do what you normally do. Take care of yourself. Be well. We'll see you next week.